All right, here we go. Here we go. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Fordcast. This is your stroked out host, Jim Rico, and happy Sunday, happy Easter, and to a lot of you, happy 420. Just blessed to be here to do the show today, and I got a special treat for you guys because a lot of people are celebrating. A lot of people are celebrating for Christians, Easter, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, if you're into Christianity. And for those people who are marijuana consumers, today is their day as well because it's 420, April 20th, which is recognized around the world as Get High Day. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get high off of the Fordcast, and we're going to talk about something I've kind of been stepping around a little bit. I've been not tiptoeing, but if you've been listening to the podcast, you've been hearing me talk about God. And I always said that I would talk a little bit more in depth because God is a huge part of my life. Let me just say first, I don't own any of the rights to any of this music that you hear during the podcast. So just to let you know that. But also, I'm not a Bible thumper. Okay? I don't go to church every Sunday. I definitely don't go to Bible study during the week. And I'm not, a holy roller. I'm not. So with that said, what I am, though, is I am a believer in God. Okay? And let's just talk about God. Okay? This show is going to be about trying God. But the God that I'm talking about is whatever higher power that you understand a God to be. Now, you got to think about that for a minute, because to Christians, God is Lord, Savior, Jesus Christ. If you were in another religion, say Buddhist, your God is Buddha, right? And if you are into any other different religions, there are many different kinds of religions, and I don't have a list in front of me, but each religion has its own deity, means its own higher power. And whatever higher power that you want to subscribe to, that's going to be your God, okay? So if you don't have a higher power, if you don't have a God that you subscribe to, then today is the show for you, because I am going to bring it to you. Hey, try God. That's the whole name of this thing, try God. In 3 easy steps, I'm going to explain it to you. And once you listen to this show, if you don't have a higher power or a deity to help you do things that are beyond yourself, then I promise you, if you try what I'm talking about, you will be on your way, because we all need help. We all understand how hard it is to do things on our own. I don't care who you are, but you always need help. And sometimes human help is not enough. Sometimes you need spiritual help. Sometimes you need divine intervention. Okay? Sometimes you need that. And if you don't have a relationship with a God, then where's your divine intervention going to come from? Who are you going to pray to for that divine intervention? Where are you going to put your faith in? You can't put your faith in human beings, because they're going to fail you. Every human being is fallible, Mom, dad, sister, brother, cousin, uncle. Everybody will let you down, and you probably already know this, okay? So what we're going to talk about, excuse me, in 3 simple steps is trying God. All right. And let's just go ahead and jump into it. The easiest one, step 1. All right. Step 1, the easiest thing to do is prayer. All right. Prayer. And if you think about prayer, most people think about getting on their knees, putting their hands together, and saying thank you, thank you, thank you, and I want this and I want that. Well, that's only part of it. All right. Even though it's the easiest, we still get it wrong. So let me tell you about step one and how to do it the correct way. All right. Prayer. Number one, when you pray, you need to be alone with yourself so you can talk to your deity or your higher power or your God, whatever that is. You need to be somewhere where you can be okay to talk openly and candidly. All right. And I say that because once you start doing this and get good at it, you never know what might happen while you're praying. I'm going to tell you. So you want to find a quiet place, all right? A place where you can be alone, where you can talk, all right? And then once you find that quiet place, the first thing that you want to do when you get in that place and get on your knees or put your hands together, whatever, is you want to thank your deity for everything that you can think of that you are thankful for, from the smallest to the biggest thing in your life. I mean, and we don't really think about how blessed we are. I mean, think about this. You're listening to me. All right. So you're not deaf unless somebody's transcribing this for you. You're not deaf. So you have the blessing to be able to hear. Right. If you can see and not blind, then you have a blessing. You got the gift of sight. You got the blessing of sight. If you can walk, you have that blessing. If you can talk, you have that blessing. If you have strength, whatever it is, if you have whatever it is, I'm trying to get you to understand that every day, every single day that you wake up, it's your opportunity to do what you want to do. Free will. So if you wake up and you can see and you can move about your day, then whatever you make that day out to be is on you. And whatever you already have in your toolbox, whether you can run, walk, crawl, hop, scream, all those are blessings. All those things are tools that you can use to do something different. So when you're thanking God, you're thanking him for everything. Me, it's easy for me. I'm so blessed. Now, I'm a stroke survivor. So the first thing I thank him for is being alive. Thank you for giving me another opportunity today. Thank you. And if I was able to crawl out of bed and on my knees, thank you for the strength in my legs. Thank you for that. Now, some of you, none of you know, I'm partially blind in one eye due to the stroke. But I can see out of my other eye, and I can see okay out of my blind eye. But, still I'm somewhat blind, but I thank him for the gift of sight. I thank him for the feelings that I do have. I don't dwell on what I don't have. It's all about thanking for what you do have. So anyway, I'm thanking him for my home. I thank him for my kids. I thank him for my mother. My father's long gone. I used to thank him for both of my parents being alive, but I thank him for my family. I thank him for the things yesterday, because remember, if we're practicing who we want to be each day, and hopefully if we did something the day before, then if we wake up today, then we should be a little bit further along. So I thank him for those things yesterday. I thank him for the people that were in my life to help me get to where I am today. There's so many things that you can thank him for, all right, or your deity. So that's that part. You want to thank him from everything, and then you want to ask for, after you thank him, you want to ask for forgiveness. All right. This is any time, because we always get it wrong, y'all. Nobody is perfect. No one can walk a perfect path each day. God knows that. Every deity knows that. Every deity of good. There are deities of evil as well. There's a God of evil. But the God that I'm referring to is the God of good. There's only one God of good, and he goes by many names. So, but God understands that we aren't perfect. He understands that. But what he does want us to do is to try and be perfect. You ever tried to live a perfect day and just get everything right? And for whatever reason, you can't get it right. I'm thinking about the movie Life Can't Get Right. Right. Because you're not perfect. You're not going to have a perfect day, although it might seem like a perfect day sometimes. As soon as you have that one evil thought, remember it's about good and evil, or as soon as you act on that evil thought, then your perfect day is blown. Okay, so what we want to do is just want to ask God for forgiveness. And asking for forgiveness is not long and drawn out. Hey, God, I just want to ask you for forgiving me for my sins and the things that I've done that not please you. Bam. For me, I always followed up asking your son's name. Okay, remember, I'm a Christian, so I always follow with the Jesus Christ thing. Whatever your religion or whatever your deity is, Krishna, if you're from India, you talking to Krishna. So we're asking for forgiveness. All right. And then after that, it is the easiest part. Ask for what you want. Now, we all know how to do that. Whatever you want on earth, this is where you get that ask in. Asking for what you need. Asking for what you want, And once you're done with that, then you're done. That's it. That's it. You ask him for that to be done, and that's it. Prayer. Part 1 is over with. You're done. You get up. Now, the next part. And this is probably the hardest part. Once you pray, you have to have faith in what you just prayed about, who you just prayed to. And what that faith looks like is you have to believe that what you've asked for is going to happen. You have to believe that your God is going to do it, And that's a little difficult sometimes because, of course, we get out in our own way. Now, believe me, while you're praying to the God of good, there's a God of evil out there working too, because he wants prayers too. And there are other people praying to him. There are other people praying to the God of evil. But the God of good, he wants you to believe in him more so than not believing in him. He wants you to believe that, hey, he's going to do it to you. Okay? I mean, this is real simple. If you're a parent and you have a child, you want your child to have faith in you. You want your child to believe what you say. You want your child to love you, right? More than anybody else, right? It's no different than the God that you're praying to and that you're asking to have faith in. It's the same concept. So the hardest part about the faith thing is that we get in our own way with everyday things. And it requires help. Having faith requires help. Let me just tell you, if you're really going to do this and attempt to do it right, you're going to have help. All right. There are lots of help with your faith. There's reading the Bible for Christians. All right. If you're Muslim, the Quran or whatever. All right. But you have to have help with having faith. All right. There are partners. Some people have prayer partners. Some people will say, hey, pray for me. All right. Well, what do you want me to pray for? Right? What do you pray for you? Okay, pray for you what? To do what? Like, and once that person prays for you, their faith needs to be on that as well. Sometimes we tend to go to older people or more spiritual people than us to ask for that help. And basically, the reason we're going to them is because we recognize in them that their faith is stronger than ours, right? So that's why we're going to them and we're asking for them. But for us having that faith, you have to focus on maintaining that faith. And sometimes you have to pray for faith. Makes sense? You got to pray for faith. Sometimes you might have to pray several times a day Sometimes you might have to pray 20 times a day. For me, it is true. Sometimes I've gotten myself in situations that I would pray, Lord, help me. And then 10 minutes later, Lord, help me, help me. Lord, help me have faith in my prayer. I have to ask God for this. And I also have to apologize. Lord, forgive me for not being faithful. Forgive me for being me. But I need your help. I need courage. I need the Spirit to provide me with courage to have faith. I mean, these are the things that you're asking for that you need. And believe it or not, the God of good will provide it. He will provide it. I'm saying people want to get into he, she's, and whatever, but God will provide it. Okay? So day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, second to second, you never know when you might have to go to the mat, go to prayer, find that corner. Or even if you're driving at a stoplight, hey, Lord, help me. There's a lot of road rage out there. I'm one of those. And sometimes I have to stop myself and, Lord, forgive me. Or Lord, please help me. So that having faith part about your prayer is big, is huge. As a matter of fact, having the faith is more so like if you can keep the faith, then everything else is going to be that much easier because God wants you to have faith in him and everything that he's capable of doing. Just think about it. If we all had faith and we all prayed for the same thing, how easy and quickly it would happen, right? Right? If we all had the same faith and were strong in our faith and we all prayed, then, in the Christian Bible, it talks about those of you who are sick, go to the elders of the church and they'll pray on you and you will be healed, right? So what that means is these people, the elders in the church, these people are strong on their faith. And so they're going to pray on you with their faith and God is going to hear them before anybody else because he already has a relationship with them, right? Right. So remember that sometimes you have to pray for your help. Pray for help with your faith. All right? Not a biggie. All right, so we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and we're going to step into part 3. Okay? This is the forecast with Jim Rico. So glad you be here. We'll be right back. All right?
Sit here laid back to this nice mellow beat, and drop some smooth lyrics. Cause it's 88. Time to set it straight, you know what I'm saying? And there ain't no half stepping. Word. I'm ready. Rappers stepping to me. They wanna get some, but I'm the Kane, so yo, you know the outcome. Another victory. They can't get with me. So pick a BC date cause you're history. I'm the authentic poet to get lyrical. For you to beat me, it's gonna take a miracle. And stepping to me. Yo, that's a wrong move. So what you on, Hobbs? Dope a dog food. Competition. I just devour. Like a pit bull against a chihuahua. 'Cause when it comes to being...
All right. We're back here at the forecast with your stroked out host, Jim Rico. Big Daddy. Who doesn't love Big Daddy? Anyway, thank you for being here. Again, I do not own the rights to any of the music that you hear. And we're back. We're talking about trying God. We talked about God during all our episodes, and now finally here, we're talking about trying God. So we just talked about step 1, which is prayer. We talked about how we want to pray. Okay, we talked about the correct way to pray. And then we went into step 2, which is having faith in your prayer. Okay, so now we're on step 3. Step 3 is the action in everything. Step 3 is about the works. All right. Step 3 is doing what you have to do because faith without works is dead. 2 and 3 go hand in hand. All of these steps work together. But the third part, doing what you have to do, is part of the faith in doing what you have to do, because this is where the Spirit guides you. Okay, so while you've asked for what you want, okay, and you're having faith in what you want, God doesn't expect for you just to sit around and do nothing. He doesn't expect you just to sit around and wait. You know, you hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm just going to wait on the Lord. What Lord expects you to sit on your butt and do nothing? Excuse me, there's a lot of stuff happening out here in the world. And God is cognizant of everything that's going on, and he needs warriors. He needs people that are going to get out here and either spread the word or put out the fires, you know. So you can either be a fighter or you can be a firefighter. You know what I mean? However you want to be. But God definitely doesn't expect you to sit around and do nothing. He doesn't expect you to sit around and do nothing. You know, the works, doing what you have to do, listening to the Spirit and being obedient. All right. Now, we're talking about the Spirit that lives inside of each one of us. Okay. There's a spirit of good and a spirit of evil. All right. Good and evil. Everything is about good and evil. So once you finish praying and then you get up from praying, the Spirit is already talking to you. The Spirit is telling you, guiding you right then and there. If you've got faith, if you got an ounce of faith, then the Spirit is guiding you right then to tell you what to do. Lots of times we think, I don't want to do that. Okay? So you're being disobedient. You just ask God for help, and he's guiding you through the Spirit, because the Spirit lives inside of us. And as soon as the Spirit tells you what to do, I don't want to do that. I don't want to speak to that person this morning. You get to work, that person you hadn't spoken to in weeks or months, or you walking out the door and your neighbor who you don't normally say something to, the Spirit says, say good morning. I don't want to say good morning. I mean, think about it. We will override the Spirit with our own stuff. I'm not going to curse today, Sunday, but I might slip out. But this is the part where you have to do what you have to do. This is where we talked about every day practicing who you want to be. This is the Spirit guiding you to be who you want to be, to get your prayers answered. For example, you could be broke and destitute. Does that mean you can't do anything? Absolutely not. Because when you're broke, you have what on your hands? Time. You have lots of time, because more than likely you aren't doing anything, all right? You aren't going anywhere. So what are you doing with your time? Are you planning? Are you looking at your plan? Are you evaluating your plan? You know, are you learning something that you can learn that you haven't learned before? You know, are you studying about God more? Now, for me, just for me, when I started putting all three of these together, then when I found that I had a lot of time on my hands, I would have to, the Spirit would be talking to me. And of course, I didn't want to do everything the Spirit was doing. You know, I wanted to pick and choose what I wanted to do. You know, I was being disobedient. But once I started really focusing and listening and being obedient, I started doing the little things. Cleaning up your room, straightening up this, taking care of that thing that's been sitting in there for a year and a half that you said that you're going to get to, right? These are the things that you can do that the Spirit guides you to do, that if you're being obedient, you get them knocked out. You get them knocked out and done. And then the Spirit tells you something else. I'm telling you honestly, these things work. These things work together. And the prayer that you've already asked for, hey, it's coming. It's coming. Now, what are you going to do in the meantime? Because if you're going to sit around and wait and ignore the spirit that's telling you to do other things, then guess what? You might be waiting for your prayer to get answered for a while. You know, I like to think God has a funny bone. You know, I like to think God has some a comedic side, and he sits around and looks at us sometimes, and you know, we just ask for that $1 million, and he's telling us how to get it, but we're sitting around doing absolutely nothing. There is no way that in this life, right now in the world we live in, that there's room to do nothing. There's never a time room to do anything. There are so many people being oppressed. There are so many people in need. You can go volunteer at a soup kitchen, which is something I did when I was completely down and out. I mean, when I was down and out, I lost a son a while back. My son died, committed suicide. And when I tell you I was at my lowest that I ever been, I think I probably was. That probably was my lowest. Except that was one particular time when I did question God. I don't know if I was low, but this point in time in my life when my son had committed suicide, I was so low. And I did not know what to do. As a matter of fact, this was during a recession, and I had gotten outbidded for a major account that I had held on to for about 3-4 years. And it was so much happening in my life. And I had been on my way. I'm not going to say on top because you're never on top, but I had been on my way to where I thought I wanted to be. But these things started happening. You know, the recession came, I got outbidded, and then my son died. And then my relationship with my kid's mother went left, and we were on the outs, and it was the beginning of the end. There was so much happening, and I caught shingles. I was young and I caught shingles. I don't know if you know what shingles are, but shingles is basically the chicken pox. And it's brought on by stress, in your adult years. And I remember going to the hospital, and the nurse was looking at me, and she was like very empathetic. She was like, "Oh, you poor dear." She's like, "Have you been going through some things?" And I looked at her. I was like, "Lady, you don't even know." Like, it was one of those things where I ain't going to even begin to tell you. And so they tested me for shingles, and they were basically saying, well, either you have shingles or you have AIDS. And so, of course, it turned out to be shingles. But it was brought on by all of this stress. So I was at such a low point in my life that I was on the couch doing nothing, doing absolutely nothing. I was upset over losing my son, tears every day, crying from one room to the next, just woe is me. And even though my relationship with my kid's mother, my daughter's mother, was ending, she said to me, why don't you get up and go help somebody who's worse off than you? I'm thinking, what are you talking about, worse off than me? I mean, I'm the one that's lost a son. I just lost my major account. This is not happy. I was so caught up in me. But you know what? I took her advice. And I went down to the local soup kitchen, or whatever you call it. I was living in Durham, North Carolina then. And I went down to the local kitchen, and they asked me, I said, I'm here to help. I'm here to volunteer. And what they did was they fixed breakfast for homeless people. And they asked me, what did I want to do? And I was like, I said, I can cook. And it was like, okay. And so do you know what I was doing, y'all? For those of you who know me, I was cooking eggs. Now, if you know me, you know I love eggs. I have loved eggs since I came out of one, since I was one, rather. And I wasn't just cooking eggs. I cracked about 50, 60 eggs, and I was whipping them up in this huge bowl that you probably mix cakes with, and I was cooking them on this huge burner. And for me, it was about making sure that these eggs did not get burned, that they weren't undercooked, that they were nice and yellow, because I know I don't like burnt eggs. But I began to enjoy that, right? And I stayed there that day, and once you finished breakfast, you helped clean up, and that was it. They sent you home. So you were there probably 2 hours, and they sent you home. And the first time it was like, oh, man, I actually enjoyed that. So I went back the next day, and they had me doing something else. And I think one day I went back the next day, and then I was serving. And then you got to see people who, regardless of what you're going through, there are other people out there that are much worse off than you. I tried to tell my nephew that, I told him, a few times, say, listen, there are people out there that are going through a lot more. And this is where I found that out. Now, mind you, I lost my son, and he wasn't coming back. My only son, something I had wanted since I knew I wanted to be a parent. But I lost my son. I was losing my relationship, and I lost my business. But there were other people out there who had already lost. And here they were coming into this place to be fed. They were coming into this place to get the only meal that they probably were going to be able to get that day, unless they went to somewhere else, right? They were parents with kids. And I'm sitting here thinking, wow, I'm leaving here, going back to my house with my messed up relationship with my remaining kids, and I'm crying over what I've lost, but I wasn't focused on what I had. I wasn't focused on what I had. I wasn't thankful. So after doing that for a while, I didn't do it long. As a matter of fact, they began, once they have enough help, if you get there late, they'll tell you they have enough help. You might get there late one day and they'll tell you they have enough help, and they'll send you home. The kitchen's only so big. And for me, I began to look forward to that. But when they turned me away, it was like, oh no, this was fulfilling me. This was doing something. And, I thought I was doing what, I was doing the works. I was doing what I had to do in the meantime, but now it had ended. Well, you know what? That meant that it was time to do something else. So, listening to the Spirit and being obedient, the Spirit will guide you. Okay? Again, you have free will. You can ignore the Spirit and do what you want to do. But if you're trying God and you've already done step 1 and step 2, why wouldn't you do step 3? Why wouldn't you do step 3? I mean, if the end goal is to get your prayers answered and you've already done 2/3 of it, why not do the third? Yeah, I know it's hard. Yeah, it's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult, which is why you're praying to a higher power in the first place, because I'm telling you, once you make one step towards your higher power takes an even bigger step towards you. You may not even know it, but things are already moving for you in your direction. Things are already in the works. There are so many times that things that cannot be explained have happened to me in my life because I've kept the faith, and in the meantime, I'm doing what I have to do. Now, don't get it twisted. I want you to understand, I am not a perfect being, nor am I prescribing to be. What I'm telling you is that what I try to be every single day, And I come up short every single day, as you will. Maybe not as much as me, maybe more so than me. But if you're trying, then that's what God wants you to do. Try. And he wants you to try with your whole heart and your whole effort. He knows when you're half stepping. You know when you're half stepping. Okay. This is Jim Rico with the forecast. We're talking about Try God. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, we're back here with the forecast with Jim Rico, your stroked out host, and welcome back. Thank you guys for listening. Again, I do not own the rights to any of the music that you hear in this show. Happy 420, happy Easter to you. Thanks for tuning in. Again, we're talking about Try God. We're talking about the 3 steps that I came up with as far as trying God. And I just want to read this to you right quick. And I wrote this years ago. So just bear with me. First and foremost, when you try God, you have to come correct. This is God. Now, I don't want to have to get all religious or religified on you, but what I mean is that you first need to understand who God is and what he stands for. In life, a person doesn't try something and not learn something new in the process. From my point of view, God is love, and he stands for love throughout the land. If you don't have an understanding of who God is, then I suggest you attend a few Sunday morning class sessions at your local church. Reading the Bible is also another good way to develop an understanding of who God is, what he expects from each one of us, how we should live every day, and so forth. There's also the option of signing up for a religious-based course at the local community college. Once you have a fair understanding of God, then you know that this isn't a game. As you prepare to talk to God, be prepared to listen to what he says back to you. So many, if not all of us, hear him speaking to us all the time and never pay attention to his words. He speaks to each one of us through his own insides. He speaks to each one of us through our own insides because he lives within each one of us. Scientists and doctors have tried to name his voice of reason and love that speaks from inside of us. Some call it a conscience or subconscious. Others describe it as having scruples or even intuition. These names all carry value in the scientific world, but in reality, they all mean the same thing: power from within. Look it up in your dictionary at home or at the office. Only those who have a good understanding of who God is know that the voice is the Almighty speaking to us. Think about it. The voice is always telling you what the right thing to do, how you should handle any situation, and especially when you ask him for anything, he responds to you and me. Now, the hard part is living the way he expects us to live. All right? So I wrote that years ago, y'all. I wrote it years ago. And I pulled it out and dusted it off. I was like, you know what? This still rings true. I remember when I used to smoke. I used to smoke cigarettes, had quit once and picked them back up and, had really wanted to quit because it was just like, I was so over it. And I knew it wasn't good for my health. And I would pray to God and I would pray, Lord this, Lord this. And every time I went to the store, the Spirit would talk to me, don't buy that pack of cigarettes. I remember it clearly. The Spirit would say, don't buy that pack of cigarettes. But you know what I did? I bought that pack of cigarettes. And then I called myself listening, and instead of buying the pack of cigarettes, I started buying the Lucy's. All right? For those of you who do not know, a Lucy is a single cigarette that stores illegally sell because it's illegal to sell single cigarettes. But they did. You could go in and buy 1 or 2 cigarettes, usually $3 for $1, all right? And that was my way of cutting back. But I was wanting that help. and I was looking for a way to stop. And between you and me, my last cigarette that I smoked was October the 26th of 2022. That was the day I had my stroke. The day that I had my stroke. That was the last cigarette I smoked in this lifetime. Because although you're not supposed to say never, this Jim Rico, you won't see him puffing on a cigarette this lifetime anymore. So I asked, and trust me, he intervened. He intervened because the last cigarette that I smoked is when I stroked out. The last time I puffed a cigarette, 30 minutes later, I was on my way to a hospital, stroke intact. So sometimes we ask for help and God gives it to us. And sometimes when we continuously ask for help, God gives it to us. And then sometimes when we are proven that we just can't do it on our own, God will allow us to make our choices, and our choices will result in some of the most dire circumstances. Sometimes I think, would I have had the stroke if I hadn't have been smoking? Probably not. Because if I hadn't had the stroke, I don't know if I would be talking to you right now. Although this is what I wanted to do, But I knew once I came back from that time with this second life, that I was going to be so obedient in trying to do everything that I needed to do. And I knew this was something that I needed to do, So again, I hope you don't have to have a life-altering medical incident to make you obedient. But for some of us, it's like that. Some of us it is. You'll hear a lot of people say to you that they had certain things happen in their life and this is what caused the change. And it doesn't always have to be like that. It doesn't always have to be like that. You can spark change on your own. The power lives inside each one of us. Okay? So anyway, that's that about Try God. And if you want to talk about this some more, because I'm not trying to push religion off on anybody, but what I do want you to understand is that each and every one of us, we have a spirit inside of us, a spirit of good. And that spirit can guide us to do amazing things. I don't care who you are, what you've done in your life. There's a spirit inside of you that can help you get to where you need to be. They can help you accomplish things that you never thought that you could be able to accomplish. Some people talk about miracles. Some people talk about being lucky. No, I talk about being blessed. And if you're doing the things that God is asking you to do, if you're being obedient, then the things that used to seem hard or not as attainable in your life, they become easy. And sometimes those things aren't even what you want anymore. You know what I mean? Well, you probably don't. If you're praying for power and money, and in the meantime, God is directing you and you're being obedient, then you might get to a point where you're not interested in praying for power or money. It might be to put your family back together. We have a lot of issues with families not together for whatever reasons. I know my family. You guys know them as the Crosbys. Not the Cosbys, but the Crosbys. And growing up, we had such fun together. But it seems like once everybody got older, they started going their own different directions. And looking back on it, I miss that, and I would pray that my family would find a way back to one another. And for years, it didn't happen. But in the most recent time, those relationships have started to rebuild. And the only thing I can tell you is that it's through faith and my prayer. So anyway, trying God. All right. We want to pray. There's a way we want to pray. All right. We want to be by ourselves. We want to get to that place where we can talk candidly. All right. And we can ask God for what we want. We thank him for what we have. We ask for forgiveness for everything we've done wrong. And then we ask for what we want. Step 2, having faith in our prayers. Okay? Having faith. You're going to need help with that. Sometimes you're going to have to pray about your faith, going to church will help you with your faith for some people. Help me, I'm not a big proponent of church. I'm not even a big fan of pastors. I've seen and known some despicable pastors, leaders in the church. And, they're human. So I don't put a whole bunch of worth in pastors, and if the pastor's leading the church, hey, whatever. But if you can find a church that works for you, then great. If that's going to help you with your faith, then do so, And then step 3, doing what you have to do. I'll tell you this also for me, and just because I'm a Christian, reading the Bible, all right? Reading the Bible helps me. And a lot of people think about reading the Bible, open it up to page 1 and reading Genesis. No, I tried that. That doesn't work for me, okay? So I asked a person, my neighbor, as a matter of fact, and my neighbor suggested that I go and purchase a Bible. It was some type of learning Bible. And he told me to try and start reading from Acts, ACTS, the Acts. And it was talking about all the things that the disciples did. But even before that, y'all, and I'm telling you, and this is true, once you start trying to be obedient, God looks out and starts sending things your way to help you. One day I was in the gas station. I had just left my friend who was dying of liver disease. As a matter of fact, no, let me back up. I'm going to tie all this together to you. My son committed suicide, and I had to go to the hospital to see his body. And on the way back from the hospital, headed back up the highway, I stopped at a gas station. And I was pumping gas. And of course, my mind was just, I was completely out of it. And this man comes up to me, typical man comes up, you already bracing yourself for the ask, can I get this? And he said to me something along the lines of, my mother was a prophet, such and such and such. What's your name? I told him my name. And he said, he said, you're a king. And I was like, yeah, okay. I've always considered myself a king. But he's like, yeah. He said, do you know there's a book about you in the Bible? And I was thinking, well, yeah, I kind of knew that. He said, have you ever read it? And I was like, no. He said, I would encourage you to read it. And that stuck. It's one of the shortest books in the Bible. And I went and read it. And that was probably the very first book of the Bible that I read from beginning to end. So my faith helped me, and reading the Bible helped me with my faith, if that made any sense, because God put that man in my life to help me because he knew that I needed it. And I read it, the book of James. Of course, my name is Jim Rico, so you know that comes from. So I read the book of James, and oh my gosh, I read it back then. I would read it probably every day, because it made so much sense, and then I was able to go and read the Acts, and then I was able to read other books, or if I heard a scripture from somewhere, I would read it. Now, not every day. Again, I don't do these things every day. Again, I'm not a Bible thumper, My God is who I say it is. Whoever your God is and whatever who you describe to your deity is going to be who you want it to be. But for me, if you're trying to live a Christian life and Christianity, Jesus Christ and all that, then the Bible is that book. Excuse me. The Bible is that book. So I would encourage you to get help with your faith, whether it's from the church, whether it's with praying partners, whether it's reading your Bible, okay? Because that's going to help you. All right. And then the last part, doing what you have to do. Step 3, being obedient, okay? That's where the action comes in. That's where you're doing all the details. That's where you're getting ready. For example, if your house is dirty and you prayed for something, then in the meantime, clean up your house, right? Clean up your house. Get your house in order. Literally get your house in order. If you got a yard that looks like the jungle and you've got time on your hands, get in your yard. If you've got mounds of papers that have been sitting there for months or mail that you haven't gone through, go through your mail. There is something to do in the meantime. Do not sit around and wait. Do not sit around and wait. Do what you have to do. Do what you have to do while God is working through you. And then once you start listening and being obedient, other things start coming to you. Oh, do this. Oh, do that. Go here. Do that. And I'm telling you, I promise you, once you get in a good groove, so many things will come to you. You'll have to start writing them down because everything will be coming to you. You'll have to write them down to know what to do. But here's the thing. Once you go to bed, you're not guaranteed to wake up. We think we're going to wake up. We all think we're going to wake up. But once we wake up, it's another day. It's the next day. And you have to start all the way over. I mean, for those people that are into football players, they know every season is different from the last. Just because you won the Super Bowl last year, that does not mean you're going to win it this year by doing everything you did last year. No. You have to go at it a whole different way. The same approach, meaning getting up in the morning, thanking God, asking Him to guide you to do what you need to do. If you need courage, ask for courage. If you need strength, ask for strength. Don't just get up there and ask, Lord, give me $1 million. What are you going to do with $1 million? I mean, literally, if someone gave you $1 million today, what would you do with it besides buy stuff? Would you spend it all? Would you have any money 5 years from now? Do you need to learn how to budget your money? All right. I mean, if you're doing drugs and you got $1 million, are you going to spend $1 million on dope? No, it's plenty of stuff that we can do. Okay. So just remember, step 3, doing what you have to do. Get it done that day because tomorrow's not promised. Do what you have to do that day because tomorrow is not promised. And if by chance you're blessed to wake up that next day, then bam, you're that much closer. All right. I appreciate it. I thank y'all. I'm going to jump on out. It's a beautiful day today. For those Christians, today is the day that Jesus Christ rose from the dead, and people are celebrating that. And like I said, for those other folks, today is 420. So they're celebrating the plant, the herb. Okay. So whatever you're celebrating today, just know that you're blessed to be able to celebrate in today. All right. If you don't know what to be thankful for, be thankful that you have the opportunity to be able to listen. All right. Because whatever you're listening to me on, that's a blessing. Too often we take things for granted. I know I have, and sometimes do as well. But if you start looking at everything from a daily perspective, then it helps you work from a daily perspective. So if you get the opportunity to wake up tomorrow and do something different with your life, then I encourage you to try God, y'all. I really encourage you to try God. This is Jim Rico with the Forecast. I thank y'all for being here. Next week, hopefully, I have something, a little surprise for you. And if I don't be mad at me. But this is Jim Rico with the Forecast. I do not own the rights to any of the music that you hear. You guys have a great week. I'll talk to you. And I love you.